Blast off. Oh, look at them glasses.
Yeah.
Thank you for Thank you for listening to another episode of I was just waiting until you stop doing your eye thing and you're going yeah.
I only said yeah once.
No, it's like but it was it doesn't matter. Thank you for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind. I'm Mike as always. I've got my buddy Alex. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. Good and professional. Ready to do a
Good
professional
and professional.
thing.
That's you know what? You were like right on time today.
As always. I'm always right on time.
As never, but you know, I appreciate
Nothing
it.
outside
Today
of the norm
you said
there.
but today was the first time you said you were professional, but you were on time. So I'm gonna give it to you. Thanks, bud.
You're welcome.
I love you, man. You're a good friend. Good co-host.
Feels like some pity compliments, but I'll take it. Thank you.
But what we do here at Remake Rewind, we talk about movies that have been remade, rebooted. Don't necessarily compare the original and the new one, but just decide if the new one needed to happen, if it added to cinema, changed anything, or anything like that. What are we going to be talking about? What are we going to talk about today, bud?
Doctor Strange, the 1978 made-for-TV movie, and the 2016 Marvel Cinematic Universe thrill-a-minute roller coaster ride origin story starring Benedict Cumberbatch, directed by Scott Derrickson.
There you go. That's everything he said was 100% accurate.
Yeah.
There we go. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume you've never seen the 1978 version.
I have not. I'm continuously surprised at how many attempts they've made at Marvel movies in the past that I didn't know about.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, like we technically covered Captain America on this podcast twice. We did one with the 1990s version, and then of course the Chris Evans version. Then we also did the Chris Evans one again with the 1970s version. This one was also just like the 1970s version that you and I covered about a year ago. This was a CBS made for TV. It was supposed to be a pilot essentially, and if people liked this, then it would have gone on to be a TV series like
the
Hulk, which funny enough, they made all these TV movies and only the Hulk made it to TV.
Yeah,
so,
ironically, now the Hulk cannot get a movie.
Yeah, it's wild how that happens. But I know you, as a Marvel fan, we've covered so many Marvel movies on this and bonus episodes and whatnot that I know you've seen the 2016 version. But where does that fall for you in the MCU? Like where would you put that? Upper tier, bottom tier, middle tier?
Upper middle, upper maybe. I think it's very solid. I think it's the villains are kind of a mixed bag. Like Mads is fantastic. I mean, I guess we'll go into this. I think their design is kind of boring, but Mads puts in a good job, and I think his the villain's perspective is more serviceable. More interesting than a lot of their villains, but not one of their best. I think, it's another origin story. Doctor Strange is kind of similar to Tony Stark. Like, they're both pricks, and they have to learn to give themselves over to the greater good. And it's like, it's not that much different. It might be a little bit more streamlined than Iron Man.
That's
fair.
But
it also, wouldn't exist without Iron Man, covering that ground first.
Absolutely. This is actually one of the movies I've probably watched the least in the MCU. I put this at the time like squarely in the middle. I didn't hate it. I mean, I liked it. Like we've talked about it a lot. Like the worst Marvel movies, like a C+, B-. I put this towards the bottom at the time. Like I saw it in theaters when it came out. I remember thinking like, oh, visually this was really cool, but a lot of the things you just said, I was kind of like, this wasn't as impressive. And when you had two badass Captain America movies back to back with, Winter Soldier and then Civil War, even though Civil War was Avengers 2.5 essentially. This one felt a little weaker to me. So this is actually going into this is only the third time I watched it. So I watched it when it came out in theaters. I watched it once on Blu-ray like 2-3 years ago. And then this time. So I was actually really excited to watch this. The reason we did this is, of course, next week the Multiverse of Madness comes out. And,
Doctor Strange 2.
Doctor Strange 2. So we figured we'd prime ourselves and go back to the beginning of Doctor Strange.
Are we going to do a bonus episode for Multiverse of Madness?
We will, but it'll have to be like a week after it comes out because I'm actually going to be in Spain when it comes out. So I leave on the 4th and I get back on the 15th of May.
How did they say Doctor
So,
Strange in Spain?
I don't remember how to say doctor, but or strange. So I don't know.
It'd be like Thrange.
I don't know.
Right?
Yeah. Well, but see, I'm going to
Spain.
Barcelona, so that's technically not Spanish. They speak Catalonian.
I'm just talking about the accent. Thrange.
Yeah. Well, I don't do accents because, like, one, I can't do them, and I always, if I do a Spanish accent, I end up doing a really stereotypical, borderline racist Italian accent.
Well, you can get away with being racist towards Italians, is what I've found.
Well, I am part Italian. Like,
well,
I'm
then
like,
I
can totally say it. Yeah, like if my grandfather wasn't adopted by a Puerto Rican family, my last name would be Corda de Pasi.
I mean, Acevedo and Corda de Pasi is both pretty Italian sounding. I don't mean that you can get away with it because you're part Italian. I mean that society can get away with it because Italians are okay to make fun of.
Anyway, let's get into the 1978. So as Alex said, this was originally supposed to be a made-for-TV movie. It was made by CBS. The idea was if this caught on, then it would become a TV show. Would you like to summarize this one? Or you want me to summarize
I would
this
like
one?
to summarize it.
Oh, go for it, bud.
Lucille Bluth wants to impress a demon, so she convinces the co-writer of Twister to push an old dude off a bridge, but he's fine. So she just kind of stalks him for a bit. Meanwhile, the old guy decides to give his mysterious power to a med student who's kind of a dick and definitely doesn't want to be a wizard. He falls in love with the Twister lady and is...
He was a resident, not a med student, but sorry.
I mean, he's not a doctor.
He is a doctor. He's a resident.
They're like doctors in training, aren't they?
No, residents are full-fledged doctors.
Nah.
They've gone through their internship, everything.
Yeah, but
that's why he's taking meetings.
But they're residents.
That's a full-fledged
They have somebody
doctor,
above
continue.
them. Right?
Continue. Not really. Resident is like on their own. Like there's obviously department heads, but they don't have to go to anybody to treat patients how they want to.
Wow. Hold on. Give me a minute to think of a resident insult. What do we got? I don't know.
It's like a president without the P.
He's going to be the resident of having foots up his ass.
There we go.
Or you will be. I got to match your ass and my face. Wait. So anyway, this not doctor falls in love with the Twister lady and is tricked into taking the old man's powers after he indirectly turns young Lucille Bluth into old Lucille Bluth.
Yep, there we go.
That's it. That makes about as much sense as what actually happened, right?
Yeah. So yeah, Jessica Walter carried this movie.
I was kind of impressed with all of the acting, to be honest. They weren't given a lot, right?
They weren't given a lot, but like Jessica Walter, she chewed some fat. She did a good job with it. She's like the only one that really had a quote unquote successful career as an actor afterwards.
Can we agree that I think that the what's the guy that played Doctor Strange? I should have his name down here. Peter Hooton.
Yeah.
I think Peter Hooton and Benedict Cumberbatch. Oh, I'm sorry. I want to say, can we agree that Benedict Cumberbatch is like widely accepted as, Stephen Strange? He's a good portrayal of it, right? I don't think that Peter Hooton was that far off from that.
No,
and he took the role seriously and did his thing.
One of the things I was going to say is, while this movie was a TV movie, they had to save the budget from mostly towards the end of the movie. I think this, even though it was I would say it's a little dull, it's a little slow, but I think this is significantly better than both Captain America movies that I have covered on this podcast besides the modern version. This was definitely better than the one that we watched together like a year ago. And I think this is better than the 1990s one. And honestly, by the end of the movie, he had like a comic accurate Doctor Strange cloak and wizard getup that really wasn't that far off from the modern day ones.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I was pleasantly surprised with how not awful this was. Like, I didn't love it. Will I ever watch it again? No, but I didn't hate this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think it I didn't know what was going on half the movie, and I kept on asking myself why it hadn't ended. I think there's a lot of sagging parts. I think it definitely dragged, but that's fine.
one of my first notes. So it starts with like a not quite an opening crawl, but there's words, there's text on the screen, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it just says like there are multiple dimensions. There's an evil dimension. The seal's about to break. It's a loose seal is going to break, and good guy, evil could cross, and we're going to have to give the magic to somebody new because the protector's old now. That's basically explains it. But it has like the opening scroll, and then it has like the logo and the font, and then it has like this like you see this like underworld dimension mountain and everything as Lucille Bluth comes in. And like my first note was looks like 1970s van art, which I mean that's kind of the aesthetic they were going for, and I kind of dug it initially. And then you saw like the entity was this like weird, I don't even know what it really was, like if it was like a finger puppet or what it was, but there was like some sort of demon that Morgan Le Fay, played by Lucille Bluth, aka Jessica Walter. Yeah, quite a bit. But it was effective. It just was obscured by mist and everything, and it had 4 glowing red eyes, cool. And you can just barely kind of see a mouth move. But it's like it's supposed to be some weird interdimensional deity entity kind of thing. And it kind of worked. And then she has 3 days to either kill the old dude or kill the successor, which is Strange. And that's pretty much the crux of this movie. Like the whole plot is just like all these little near misses, and then her being attracted to Doctor Strange and deciding not to kill him, and then she tries to seduce him, and Doctor Strange was totally gonna bang her.
This is like a sexy
and she
Doctor
screwed
Strange.
Up by me. Yeah, like it's a little odd because there's she possesses somebody, pushes the old man off the bridge like you mentioned, immediately leaves this girl. Doctor Strange treats her. She leaves the hospital and she's like, well, I'm not your patient anymore, so we could fuck, right? And he's like, oh yeah, we could totally fuck. Goes on a date with his patient who just got checked out after having what amounts to a nervous breakdown. And then he gets abducted by Morgan Le Fay, and she's like, I don't want to kill you. I'm just going to fuck you. And he was totally going to do it until she's like, oh, before we fuck, I just want to show you that I kidnapped your mentor.
Yeah.
It's super weird, but like that's like 90% of the plot right there.
Yeah, I mean that is basically it.
How'd you feel about the special effects? Pretty solid for 70s.
Yeah,
TV.
I like the Himmel Mountain guy that Morgan Le Fay is talking to. I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't care for the like magic powers that they shoot out of their hands. Because it's like very clearly like just superimposed, and that it's an effective special effect, and definitely like of the time. But even this version of it felt like more rudimentary than other things. So the budget was definitely showing. Other than that, I thought it was fun.
But for 70s television,
right? For 70s television.
Yeah, if this was a big blockbuster movie, I'd be like, maybe not so much. But for TV, I was pretty impressed. I could see why this didn't catch on, though. I mean, like, how much of the same stuff could you have been doing week after week? They set it up like she became an old woman at the end because she failed her master, and then, like, inexplicably, she's on TV as, like, a self-help guru / beauty influencer. Like, she was being set up to be like the main villain of the TV series, which, that's fine. But yeah, I just don't see what they would have been having Stephen Strange do week after week.
I think he would just solve psychiatry cases.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be interesting. Like a medical procedural with periodically, shooting lasers at people.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned the van art, and I picked up on that aesthetic throughout the whole movie. It felt like they got Jerry Garcia to do the music, but they told him that he was doing a porno.
I was just gonna say, like, I actually recorded some of the music because it is it's definitely taking a big swing. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to hear this. I'm gonna edit most of this out. It's gonna slap in just a second.
There it is.
I don't even know what that music is. It's like it could totally be in like Law and Order SVU, but it's just got a little bit
It's
more
blues lawyer music
to it. Yeah. Let's see. Got another one.
I like this part.
It's almost
I genuinely think
John Carpenter.
I genuinely think that's a cool music cue.
Yeah, it's kind of like John Carpenter's music a little bit. Like if you told me he did it, I would be like, yeah, okay, sure.
Have you seen you've seen Kung Pao Enter the Fist, right?
Yes.
There were so many moments in this movie where like there's no music and nothing was really happening, so it was like quiet, but there's like room sound, and it reminded me of the scene in Kung Pao where Master Tang has like a flashback to the room with the candles and his old master, and the guy like farts and kills the dog. You know what I'm talking about? It sounded like that. I kept on thinking that was going to happen.
Well, there you go. So interesting. I don't really have much to say about this movie other than like it's very much a product of its time. I get what it was going for. I think it made a valiant effort. My only real note on here is there's a point, like I don't know if this was a joke, but when they're in the hospital, there's a point where it says, Dr. Ferrari to the ER, Dr. Larry Ferrari to the ER, and I just fucking died because it's such a stupid gag and stupid joke and stupid name, Dr. Larry Ferrari.
You know, just using Italians as a punchline again. You know what? One of my notes is that the special effects are pretty cool for 1978, and their movie's still doing the same thing. I think I'm talking about shooting the beams from your hands. And and people fighting with their beams shooting at each other.
That's still totally a thing.
But you know, it seems like when I watched it, I was a little bit more impressed with the special effects than I am as I recall it.
Yeah, that's fair.
How many times did we watch Doctor Strange remove his smock, by the way?
Yeah.
He took it off so many times.
Yeah, he did. The only other note that I have is at the end of the movie, he messes with a street performer's magical act, laughs, freeze frame, and then it becomes like a pencil sketch of the freeze frame. And that's like it. Like, there's not much to this movie. Like,
I did think there were some pretty cool camera choices. Not the cinematography is not like mind blowing or anything, but there's some like camera placement choices and cuts that I was like, oh, that's fun for a 1978 TV movie. A little stylish.
It looked fine. Like, it looked good. Like, they did honestly the best they possibly could have at the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else before we move on.
Oh, the dude that plays Wong is Clyde Kusatsu. He's it was bugging me. I couldn't remember where I knew him from. He's Prime Minister Soto in Hot Shots Part 2.
Oh,
and I was like, oh fuck yeah, I love this guy. He's been working steadily since 1970, and he has 308 credits on IMDb.
Good Lord.
Isn't that crazy?
Good for him. Nice.
Biggest
He's
career.
gonna have that SAG pension.
Yeah, well, I guess second biggest career after Jessica Walter out of this movie.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, crazy.
I don't have anything else to say about this. You know, it's coming out on Blu-ray this week. I don't necessarily say I would buy this movie. It is available online in certain places. But if you're, a Marvel fan, I honestly think that this is worth a single one-time watch. I'll never go back to it, but I don't regret watching it.
I will go back to it if Shout Factory, who is putting out the Blu-ray, wants to send us a Blu-ray. Then I will watch it again.
Yeah. There we go.
We'll do another review on here.
Perfect. I think that's fair. But with that being said, what have you been up to, bud?
Oh my God, we went so fast into it. Hold on. Let me open my thing. Oh, well, first off, I've been watching Mindhunter.
Oh, nice.
Mindhunter. I hadn't seen it before, and I knew it was good, and like Fincher's my guy, so obviously I knew I was going to be into it. But for whatever reason, I just put it off and finally got into it, and yeah, it's fucking rad, man. Really like that Mindhunter. Still watching Winning Time. Still great.
Good.
Still really enjoying that. I feel like there's another TV thing that we've been into lately. Oh, Moon Knight.
Yep.
Enjoying Moon Knight.
Me too.
Friends of the pod, or guys that I've met is what I mean. acquaintances Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead have directed a couple of those episodes, so shout out to the boys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, cool guys. Movie wise, I watched the Charlie Day comedy I Want You Back.
Yeah, on Amazon with Jenny Slate.
Yeah, Jenny Slate.
I heard it's pretty solid.
Yeah, really solid. Actually, really enjoyed it. I was surprised. I thought it was not going to be great. It doesn't have a great trailer.
I heard an interview that Charlie Day did, and he's actually been wanting to do a romantic comedy for pretty much as long as he's been acting, and just nobody's really given him a shot. So when that script came across his desk, he's like, "Hell yeah, I'm going to do one."
That's awesome. I wish I had a desk.
So good for him.
Yeah, good for him. No, they did great. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Me too.
So fucking good.
So good. I only had one complaint about the movie, and it wasn't about the movie. It's just that friendship that they have is very similar to. Obviously, I'm not Nicolas Cage or Pedro Pascal, a figurehead for a drug organization, but the way that they talk to each other is very similar to my friend Dustin, who used to host the pod. And the whole time I was watching that movie, I was like, man, I really wish I was watching it with my buddy Dustin. But it was a fun movie. Fun. I ear to ear smile the whole time.
Immediately one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah, it's definitely up there for me. Between like my three top movies have already passed this year. It was The Batman, number 1, Everything Everywhere All at Once was number 2, and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent was number 3. They've all passed, and we're not even halfway through the year.
All the Things All the Time, or whatever it's called, is on my list. I got to watch that in the next week or two. And I've been meaning to watch The Batman now that it's on HBO.
I haven't watched it in its entirety again, but I've been watching little scenes at my work because, I have that ridiculous sound system at work and 24-foot screen. Whew.
I'd like to rewatch the Batmobile scene on the big screen with like a good sound system.
That's what so my sound system at work is a $500,000 system. Holy shit. It feels like getting punched in the chest when you watch it in there. And it was fantastic.
There's like, there's like old men sometimes die from heart attacks while they're having sex. I feel like that's probably what would happen to me if I saw that on $1 million sound system.
No, it's not that bad. It actually just feels good. Like
that's what I'm saying. It's going to feel too good. I'm worried.
You need to come by sometime. And
I'll come by.
I'll do a demo for you.
Hey, thanks. That's the end of the podcast, folks. I also watched Fight Club for the first time in a bit.
Oh, good. I notice something different every time I watch it.
It's so good, man. What a great movie.
How did it feel watching Jared Leto get the shit beat out of him in that?
Good, but it's, Jared Leto is like, I felt this way with House of Gucci too. It's conflicting because I genuinely think he's a fantastic actor.
I think he can be.
Yeah.
I think he gets in his own way.
He's not great in everything, but like when he's good, he's good. Like I genuinely appreciate having him in some movies. Not a great guy at all. Maybe even a horrible guy.
Definitely a horrible guy.
But I have to hand it to him in some of these movies. He is really good. Nice to watch.
Anything
nice
else?
To see him get the shit beat out of him.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear.
No, that is it.
All right, I'll just shotgun a few of these. So I was traveling a lot. I watched a show called Making Fun on Netflix. I was watching it at a hotel. I probably wouldn't have watched it at home, but it's about a guy who used to be a toy manufacturer, and now he's a maker, and then Netflix gave him a show. It's fine. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched like 4 episodes when I was in my hotel. Totally fine. Watched The Last Action Hero. Rips.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
People don't realize how good that movie is. People didn't get that it was a satire at the time. Movie rips. I beat Arkham Asylum, started playing Arkham City about halfway through that. I almost watched Paddington 2 back in my hotel room, but after watching Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, I had to go watch a Paddington movie. So we watched the first Paddington last night, awesome. But we're going to watch Paddington 2 coming up.
We're going to watch both of them soon too.
Yeah. Started Sopranos.
Fuck yeah.
We're about 4 or 5 episodes in. Fucking fantastic.
Have you never seen it?
I've never watched it before. It's so good so far.
I want to rewatch
like 4 or 5
it
episodes
we can
in.
do episodes about that.
We're like 4 episodes
it's
in,
so
and I'm
good.
hooked.
Yeah. I'm
hooked.
stoked to hear what you think of the rest.
Started Silicon Valley again. Like, I watched that when it first came out, but I think I only watched like the first half of season 3 and then never went back to it. But started it over, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I'm already 2 seasons in.
Did you watch Barry?
No, I watched like the first 3 episodes of Barry, or 2 episodes of Barry, and didn't get into it at the time. But now that we've got multiple seasons out, I might give it another go.
Yeah, it's worth it. The new season just started.
Yeah, season 3 after like a 3 or 4 year hiatus. Yeah, I mean, the world happened, and I watched Our Great Natural Parks, the Obama documentary series on Netflix. And then just last night, I don't remember the full title, but it was called The Perfect Bid, and it's a little short documentary about an hour long about a guy who got obsessed with The Price is Right. And while he got on, he didn't necessarily win everything, but he went on the show like 30 times and actually helped people win, because you're allowed to, as an audience member, scream out pricing. Oh, wow. And so over the course of like 20 years and all of his experiences, he actually helped multiple people win the full showcase showdowns and whatnot. And in fact, he got one guy the perfect bid. So he actually won both showcases at the end. Really, just kind of a fun, goofy documentary on Netflix. Did people do
the right thing and kick him back some dough?
No, I don't think so.
Fucking bullshit.
But yeah, it was kind of a fun watch. Everybody our age grew up. When you were homesick from school, you watched The Price is Right on CBS. Like, everybody our age did that. So it was kind of nice just seeing somebody gaming The Price is Right to an extent. Yeah. But that's it. Let's get into 2016. I guess I'm going to be summarizing this one. Ooh, I didn't come up with anything clever, so I'm just gonna say
set the bar too high.
You set it very high. You did a really good job. Very impressed with that synopsis. I'm going to say criminal and reckless driver, Dr. Stephen Strange. Texting while driving, could have killed somebody else. We don't know what happened to that other driver in that car accident at the beginning of the movie. Arrogant son of a bitch, Dr. Stephen Strange refuses to do certain surgeries. Potential murderer. Potential manslaughterer. Potential manslaughterer refuses to do surgery on people because he's so concerned about his reputation, and he claims to be about saving lives, but he's kind of a piece of shit when you really think about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have to think about it that hard.
Yeah. Gets his hands destroyed in the car accident, and throws away his fortune on experimental surgery. He gets his just desserts, because the second best doctor in the world is like, I'm not going to do surgery on you, because if it doesn't work, my reputation's gone. So fuck you, Dr. Stephen Strange. So then he just decides to go harass Benjamin Pratt on the basketball court to be like, you broke your back. How are you walking? And he's just like, I learned magic. You should go learn magic. So then he goes and learns magic, and he's an arrogant piece of shit. And they still decide to teach him magic. And he breaks all the rules there and somehow becomes the best magic guy in the world. And he saves the day from Mads Mikkelsen and Dormammu.
Now, in this movie, is he a resident doctor?
No, he's like more beyond an attending. He's like, doesn't even, at that point in his career, he wouldn't even be working for the hospital per se. He's like a specialist that you hire.
Yeah. I mean, I know.
So, I know. But yeah, he's well past his residency.
That's true.
The only thing that I found confusing about this movie, so I looked at it at the time, they were very wishy-washy about when it took place. Like, when the movie came out, they made it seem like it was actually taking place a few years in the past, because for the most part, Marvel movies, until we got to Endgame, took place in the year that they came out.
And I think mostly in chronological order, with the exception of the obvious ones like Captain America.
Correct. But because of the idea that he would have to take years to study and everything, a lot of people thought that this may have taken place partially in the past and then ended right around the time that Thor Ragnarok starts, because the post-credit scene leads directly into Thor Ragnarok. So
he's got an iPad,
it turns out that this... Yeah. But I mean, iPads have been around since like 2010. So, I, at the time, honestly, I thought this was maybe 2012, around the time of Avengers, maybe 2013, several years. But there's a call on his cell phone where they're like, when he's texting, like, what cases should I get? And someone's like, 36-year-old Army colonal, broke his back in an experimental exoskeleton. So a lot of people thought that was Rhodey. And so that would put it in 2016. So it's like this whole movie, if that is supposed to be Rhodey in that reference, then this whole movie, his accident, his recovery, him giving up on modern medicine, going to the magical place, learning magic, becoming a master, like he gets promoted in his magic school, all in about a year, which I find to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you asked me when this movie took place, I would say the movie begins in like 2014 at the earliest. It feels like the whole thing takes place in less than 2 years. But I agree. It seems like he's in Comertage for 6 months or something. When he goes back and sees Christine, she's just like, "Oh, you've been gone for a little bit." She's not like, "You've been gone for 2 years, 10 years."
Yeah,
like, she's not that surprised to see him.
They magic wave this away a little bit because, you know, he says the one, he has got a photographic memory.
Right.
Two, when he's sleeping, he's astral projecting and studying even while he's sleeping. So you can kind of basically add however many weeks, months, however long, you can basically add 30% of it.
Well, there's that 10,000 hours thing. It becomes like it takes 10 years to become a master at anything. And, you know, if he's astral projecting and learning during that, then I don't know, you cut that in half. So 5 years. And then even if you want to be generous, 3 years or something, if it takes place in less than 2 years, it really feels accelerated.
Yeah. And, you know, like I said, this was kind of near my middle bottom before like the latest slew of Marvel movies. Like I definitely put this over Shang-Chi. I definitely put it over Black Widow, definitely put it over Eternals. But before those movies came out, I would have put this middle bottom. Like it's definitely better than Iron Man 3, Iron Man 2, Thor:
really
The Dark
like
World. I don't hate that movie, but I recognize the flaws.
And I think Mickey Rourke and oh my god, I forget his name.
Elon Musk in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, but what's the actor's name? It's gonna kill me.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, thank you. I think those two make that movie pretty rewatchable.
So that movie is actually my audio demo and has been my audio demo since the movie came out for surround sound demos. Awesome. And I still do that in my $500,000 sound system room for my current work. So like I've watched that movie a lot, but I understand why people don't think it's great. But I had fun watching this movie. But the thing that I find hard to believe is he's struggling at magic until he's not.
Right.
And then, like, the first time he does combat with magic is when Mordo is like, hey, man, you need to, like, respect the rules. Like, someday you might have to defend yourself. And Mordo's, like, not going easy on him, but he's not, like, trying to fuck him up. And he, like, struggles in a training kind of situation. And then he shows up when the bad guys attack, and it's, like, 4 or 5 bad dudes who are, like, really good. And they take out, like, somebody who's considered a master who's in charge of the sanctum. And he kind of like stumbles his way and is able to take on like 4 or 5 guys because he's the hero. Like he definitely had plot armor. Like this was the biggest plot armor I'd ever seen in a Marvel movie.
Yeah, I suppose you could argue that the cloak of invisibility saves his life multiple times. But he was.
But even before
exactly.
the
before
cloak,
that, he was doing pretty well. Surprisingly.
Yeah.
And you know they're drawing energy from the dark dimension and stuff too. Like he probably should have been laid out.
Yeah, I agree. But, you know, all in all, like, I think visually this movie's a trip. I forgot how good it sounded.
Yeah. I was surprised at how many elements, including the visuals, are similar to the 1978 one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would agree. There's
literally
too much
off. There's literally like, I guess it's an astral projecting thing when he's hurtling through time and space. It looks like the new movie is just covering it. Or like the ending.
Yeah.
No, really though, like the new movie, this movie feels like it's paying homage to the 1978 scene and being like, oh, we have good technology now. We can really do something crazy.
It was.
But I never
very
would have.
similar.
I didn't see anybody talk about that. It feels like something that just Scott Derrickson and Kevin Feige were thinking about.
No, I 100% agree. Like when he goes through his first little trip, and it's the same kind of colors and dimensional kind of like geometrical shapes and everything. Like it was very, very similar. Katrina actually watched the newer one with me, and one of the things she pointed out is she's like, I really like that as he was traveling through the dimensions, like they were consistent, which of course it's the MCU, so they're going to keep it consistent. But there was a little dimension in pockets that looked like the faster than light speed travel that the Guardians of the Galaxy use, and then it also looked like the quantum realm. So like this movie,
there's the coronavirus dimension.
Yep, there's that as well. There was definitely one that looked like that. There's the one weird finger dimension where his hands grew fingers, or his fingers grew hands, and then those hands grew hands. Oh, she loved it. She really did. She laughed quite a bit at that. But visually, it was really interesting. The sound, even on my home system, I've got kind of an Atmos system. It's not quite, the geometry isn't quite where it's supposed to be, but it's as close as I can get in my apartment. The sound mixing on this is incredible, and like when he's going through the dimensions and the Ancient One's talking to him.
See, it's funny that
it was really
funny that you mentioned that, because I have a 5.1 system, and it sounded like I was missing audio information. That's the only scene that I noticed it in. But like her voice was so low I couldn't hear it in certain parts.
Yeah, and in my system, it was like spinning around the room and popping here, popping there, popping. Yeah, it was definitely more interesting.
Yeah, I need to have a look at that or something. I think my my satellite, the ones in back, are not performing the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, because her voice gets pretty loud on the back in my speakers. Yeah. So yeah, maybe you just need some calibration.
Yeah, or just a whole new thing.
Do it. Get a new system.
Yeah, hook me up with one, man. Hook me up with one of those $1 million ones. Did you notice it felt like he was never punished when he was at Kamar-Taj? Like the Ancient One, like specifically calls out that he is creating portals in the library and like taking books that he's not supposed to and stuff. And we get the impression that he's doing all sorts of things that are sort of against procedure, against the rules in Kamar-Taj. And he's never like reprimanded. Yeah. The Ancient One basically says like, hey, you shouldn't do that, but since you are, we're going to advance your training.
Yeah, and well, the issue that I have with that, and I think it's a really good point that you bring up, is he shows up, he's an arrogant prick, but she sees potential in him, and she kicks him out. She's like, no, this guy's too much of an arrogant asshole. He's too much like Mads Mikkelsen.
Caecilius.
Just real quick, Caecilius. The issue, I love Mads Mikkelsen. I feel like he was wasted in this movie as a secondary villain.
100%. Why is he not one of the recurring villains in the Marvel universe?
Why is he not Doctor Doom?
Yeah, 100%. Make him Doctor Doom. Who cares?
Anyway.
Just do it.
Yeah. But she mentions a correlation between them. Both very smart, very driven, arrogant, blah, 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 blah. She doesn't want another one of him. And then Mordo is like, and Mordo is supposed to be like the biggest stickler for the rules. Like his whole thing is like, these are the rules. We don't cross them. He gets pissed at the Ancient One. He gets pissed at Doctor Strange and Wong by the end. He's like, we don't dabble in dark magic. All three of you touch dark magic. Fuck you guys. I'm out.
We don't pervert the natural order. We defend it.
Yeah. Yeah. The bill always comes due.
Bill comes due.
Whatever. Yeah. So he like puts up a fight to the Ancient One's like, hey man, you should probably help Doctor Strange. Like if you really think he has the potential, like train him. And so she has all these concerns.
She just does a complete
and then
180.
There's no follow-up or oversight.
Yeah, she just does a complete 180. And like Doctor Strange, amateur psychology here, he's an arrogant prick. And if anybody needs to be punished for breaking rules, it's him. Because once you show him that he can break the rules and get away with it, he's just going to keep on doing it. But then that becomes like not a part of the movie. He
and he like
has his arc in other ways, and it just doesn't matter.
Well, like you said, she rewards him for breaking the rules. So like he starts studying earlier. He finally learns how to use the portal, and he starts doing all the studying. And it's even weird. Like Wong, good for him. Like he's been in like every Marvel movie since. Good for him. But he's put in charge after the former librarian gets like strung up and
Beheaded.
Like suspended. Some people pay a lot of money to have that experience without the beheading. Nice. But a lot of people pay for the suspension and the being tied up. But he is put in charge of the library, and he says, like, I'm the librarian. No knowledge is forbidden. Certain things are only for the Ancient One, but I, at my discretion, can give you access. and he's like, you can't read these books. And then Strange just immediately walks up and finds the one book that he really shouldn't be reading, the one that, you know, had the pages torn out at the beginning, the one that the Ancient One's super afraid of because Dormammu can come. And Wong doesn't even attempt to stop Strange from like reading the one book that he absolutely shouldn't be reading.
Yeah, fuck this movie.
You're right. They just let him do whatever the fuck he wants the whole movie. But one of the things, the other parallels between this and the 1978 was at the end of the movie, he has a choice to make. So at the end, the 1978, he says like, you know, we told you that you were chosen, but that was really to kind of test you and see. Now you're at the point where you actually have to choose. I can't force my magic on you. I can't, you know, make you be the Sorcerer Supreme, but you have to know you will not, you will never be able to have children. You're not going to die painlessly. And I can't remember the third thing that he said, you know, but you have to make the choice.
In the original movie,
and,
1978.
Yeah, in the original. But the same thing comes at this, you know, he survives the initial attack of the bad, you know, wizards and whatnot, and has a really cool astral plane fight in the hospital.
Really
and then,
clever scene.
Yeah, I really like that scene. And then the Ancient One's gonna die, and she's like, you have a choice to make. Like, you can just go back to living normal, use magic to fix your hands like Benjamin Pratt did, or you can choose to not have an easy life and whatnot. So they both have the previous Ancient One telling them like, you could go and live your normal life if you want, or you can make the choice. And, you know, he makes the choice in both versions. So I kind of like that the ending, they both had to choose to be Doctor Strange, essentially.
Yeah, you know, they both dedicate themselves to something that's bigger than themselves. And both the movies, they start out as selfish, arrogant pricks, and they end up as selfless. It's basically the Tony Stark arc over the entire 22 movie saga condensed down to one movie, right?
Yeah. It is odd that, you know, when you look at the movies, and no, obviously he's getting his movie now, and, you know, they didn't know that Robert Downey Jr. was 100% going to come back for Endgame and Infinity War. They didn't know that he was going to come back for the Spider-Man movies, but Robert Downey Jr. was a champ and kept coming. Because when they made this movie, before they even made this, they said that Doctor Strange was going to be the new Iron Man and be the new leader and the new linchpin of the MCU, and then Robert Downey Jr. stuck around. So this was 2016. Obviously, the COVID and whatnot postponed this. This was supposed to come out last year. But even if this did come out last year and COVID didn't back anything out, that's still 5 years between sequels. In the time that between this movie and Multiverse of Madness, we had 3 Spider-Man movies and then a bunch of solo movies. You had Eternals, Shang-Chi, you had Thor Ragnarok, you had Black Widow, you had 2 Avengers movies, another Ant-Man movie, and a Captain Marvel movie. Like, half the MCU came out between this movie and Multiverse of Madness, and I find it kind of crazy that it went this long for Stephen Strange to get a second film.
I know, I was thinking about that. We just saw him pop up in so many things that we haven't had a chance to feel his absence.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think, you know, obviously they're setting up the multiverse has been such a big thing for Phase 4 so
That's
far.
one of my notes here is that the multiverse is name dropped so many times. And
Yeah.
like, again, I haven't heard anybody talking about it since then, but like this movie sets up the multiverse more than any Marvel thing had at that point. And I think in a lot of ways that nobody really realized until after Endgame.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just scrolling through, like, this is a movie that pretty much anyone's listening to this podcast has seen, so I don't feel like we need to go point by point. That I really liked the astral plane scene where he's fighting in the hospital and he's helping, you know, why can't I think of her name right now? Not Gretchen Wieners, Regina George, helps her do surgery on himself. Rachel McAdams, thank you. But it's just a fun movie. Like, visually, I don't understand how they made this movie. Like, when they're in the mirror dimension and everything's folding and the bad guys are chasing them, like, how did fucking anybody visualize that and then animate it? Yeah,
it's a shame that Scott Derrickson's not in the Marvel stable anymore.
Yeah, and he did a treatment for 2. He wanted to make it more of a horror film. And then I guess Marvel changed their mind and brought in Sam Raimi, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I think I'm reading the How Shaun of the Dead got made book right now.
Oh, I want that.
Yeah, it's really good so far. I'm like 1/3 of the way through it. Clark Collis wrote it. It's called You've Got Red on You, if anyone wants to check it out. But it seems like a similar thing to Edgar Wright's experience with Ant-Man, where he really wanted to make it, in his he wanted to make his vision of the Ant-Man movie. And I think what happened was that Marvel was like, well, we're going to tie him more into the rest of the universe at some point. So we need to like set up all these things, and we need you to be on board with that. He's like, oh, that's not really what I'm trying to do.
That's Edgar Wright's Ant-Man is like the one movie where, you see it pop up on social media every once in a while. Like, if you could go into any parallel universe and watch one movie, what would it be? His Ant-Man is very, very high on that list of movies I'd want to see.
I really want to see that Nick Cage Superman also, but yes.
Yeah, Superman. Oh, no, that one was Superman Lives. I don't remember what Tim Burton's Superman was going to be called. Yeah, that would be an insane one to watch. The only other thing that I want to talk about this, I didn't remember how badass this scene was until this time, but before he goes and takes on Dormammu with the time loop, they show up in Hong Kong. Each of the three sanctums have fallen. Like, they show up to Hong Kong just a little too late. Wong is dead, but he shows up with Mordo, and then he uses essentially the time stone, the Eye of Agamotto, and reverses time. And initially everything's reversing, and the bad guys are reversing, and then eventually they use dark magic to be in the same temporal wavelength as the heroes, and they're fighting. But as the world's going back and forth, like, I didn't realize how gnarly the destruction. Like, there's a point where you see this woman fly backwards, and you see a blood stain like come off the street, and then she goes back into her car. Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, how did I not remember that? Like, that's one of the most brutal things we've actually seen in the MCU. I was very surprised by it.
It's in a movie where they refused to show a beheading also.
Yeah. And this is in that time where, like, everybody was getting beheaded in, like, Marvel movies, like, in Disney movies. Like, beheadings were, like, all the rage in Disney at this time.
Yeah, I really like that whole Tenet third act.
Yeah, it was really effective. I completely forgot about that, and I was like, obviously Tenet does it a little bit better. It has the the luxury of a slightly bigger budget, and another 5 years removed of special effects.
And it's also the focus of the entire movie, and not just the third act.
Exactly. But I liked this a lot more, and once again, I liked this movie. I gave it a solid like B+ back in the day, but I liked it a lot more this time around. Like, I really liked, even though we said the Ancient One never really put Stephen Strange in his place and didn't punish him, she calls him out on a lot of bullshit. Like, she says something along, he says the lines of like, I took an oath to do no harm and I just killed a man. And he's like, I took an oath to save people. And she's like, you were a doctor for yourself. Yeah. Like, you wanted the glory and everything. And, she calls him out on that shit. But I really like that scene when he like kills the dude, and he's like visibly distraught about killing a guy because he is a doctor and he's always used his skills for bringing people to life. And now he's like, I'm gonna have to kill people. And like, it's a total 180 when you look at Spider-Man Far From Home, or Spider-Man No Way Home. He's like, oh, these people were destined to die, fuck them. And Spider-Man's like, yeah, but maybe we could save him. He's like, nah, fuck them. They just fucking, I'm gonna hit the button and kill them all. I don't fucking care. Like, he's completely turned a 180 on like his view of individual lives.
Yeah, I mean, even within this movie, he does such a 180. He's always learning things and changing his mind about stuff. But I was going to say, at the beginning of this movie, he's such a prick. Like, he's such an asshole, and he's so fucking mean to Rachel McAdams, who, she was a mean girl, so maybe she deserves it. But you forget how much of a prick he is at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like I said, he gets his just desserts because the other doctor treats him exactly the way he treated Christine Palmer, a.k.a. Regina George.
How long do you think that he was in the dark dimension with Dormammu bargaining?
So that's nobody's ever actually said how many, as far as I know, but that's one of the explanations people have for how come he's so powerful in Infinity War. Is that like he was just bullshitting trying magic that he didn't know how to do because he had an endless loop to just fucking practice magic against Dormammu. Right. I like the idea that it's like thousands of years that he was doing that shit.
C. Robert Cargill one of the writers said, "We intentionally left it vague with room to address it later, but it wasn't just a few minutes, I'll tell you that. He was there long enough to gain even more mastery over his powers." And I think that the director, Scott Derrickson, has said that it was a bit of an homage to Groundhog Day. And Groundhog Day, I think they said that he was in that time loop for like a decade, right?
Yeah, somebody did the math. I think it was longer than that. I think somebody did the math based off things he said, learning how long to play the piano and learning how to do this and this and this, that it was something like 50 years.
Yeah, so I mean, right there seems like it was somewhere between 5 and 5,000 years.
I think it would be rad if it was just thousands of years. And what's funny is I actually just read an article yesterday right before watching this movie, not even thinking about that time loop thing, the endless loop, but this article about why the time loop movies have been so effective lately, especially in the slasher genre, like Happy Death Day, and there was another one, Final Girl, or Final Girls. And one of the things I thought about is, they didn't even touch on this, but they brought up, more time for development, and you can have the person focus on their development before focusing on others. But I like the idea. One of the reasons why I really liked Edge of Tomorrow was seeing Tom Cruise get killed so many times. It's kind of fun to see a character killed a bunch of different ways, and it makes it creative. But I thought this was a really effective ending. I liked this so much more this time around than I did even the last time I watched it 3 or 4 years ago.
This also came out, we're talking about the third act and doing destruction in reverse, so effectively rebuilding things and solving a problem by bargaining instead of punching. And this came out alongside Batman vs. Superman, right? 2016.
Yeah, this was Captain America: Civil War, and this one were the same year, and Batman v Superman.
Yeah, and like Batman v Superman has is sort of course correcting for the Man of Steel debate, where they just like decimate a fucking town. And Batman vs Superman like tries to address that, but essentially still does the same thing. And Doctor Strange is like, "Oh, we're going to do completely the opposite. We're going to literally rebuild the city and save all these people, and have the final fight be more of a battle of wits."
Yeah, no, it was very effective. Like having a few years away from this, I really liked it. There were some really good one-liners in here that you would expect in an MCU movie. Wong was fantastic. I really liked Benedict Wong as the character Wong. And he's had quite the career after this, being in pretty much every MCU movie since. And I mean, that's really all I have. At the end of this, he encounters Thor in the post-credit scene. And then there's another post-credit scene where Mordo has basically abandoned the group, and we'll obviously see him in the next movie. Yeah, and that'll be he goes after Benjamin Bratt.
Sad. Poor guy. Doctor Strange had him killed.
Yeah, motherfucker. Yeah. That's what he gets for using magic for selfish gains.
I will say, we see when they're in Camartage, there's that like room that has the portals to the three sanctums. And the three sanctums are in New York, London, and Hong Kong, right? And they do a little map showing the energy shields over Earth. And I was looking at that map and I was thinking, man, the southern hemisphere is really fucked.
Yeah, it was interesting how that. I mean, it made like a little umbrella thing over it. Like, I think the idea is that it encompasses, but yeah, definitely.
Most
of it looked like it was at the top.
The optics aren't good. Do you think the Dark Dimension is like north of us?
It's got to be.
Yeah. They're just protecting the top.
I noticed that too, though. It definitely very, very focused on the northern hemisphere. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I can think of. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch killed it. This was going to be, he was always the first choice. He turned down the movie because he was going to be on some like West End play. They offered it to Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix wanted to do it, but he refused to sign a multi-picture deal. And then the movie got delayed a little bit, and then we got Benedict Cumberbatch, and it's like all he's done in a decade. He's
doing Joker 2.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see if that ever actually happens.
Well, he signed up
I wouldn't be surprised. Warner Brothers can't get their shit together.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what the changeover in the regime looks like over there.
We'll see. They need a Kevin Feige.
Maybe they'll bring back Zack Snyder. They'll restore the Snyderverse.
God, I hope not. I really hope
I
not.
wouldn't worry about it. Don't say that on Twitter, though.
I mean,
well,
we can say whatever we want on Twitter pretty soon.
Oh boy, Elon Musk, huh?
Yep. Okay, I've got one major flaw with this movie. One major one. You pretty much everything we've said so far, we've been able to hand wave, magic wave it away. So they know about. So at the end of the movie, Wong is like, "Oh, why can't I think of the name of the stones? The whole
Gems?
Thank you, the Infinity Stones. He mentions, the Infinity Stones, and Doctor Strange is like, what? And he's like, Wong's like, you may be a master of magic now, but you've still got, a lot to learn. Why is the Eye of Agamotto just chilling in the library where literally anybody can just fucking take it?
Yeah, this movie puts a lot of responsibility on Wong's shoulders to defend the very precious things in that library when they literally just had a breach of security.
Yeah,
I would put a couple more masters on there. Do the guy with one hand. Put him in there.
Why would you not have the Eye of Agamotto with the Ancient One at all times, being the most powerful musician in the the most powerful magician?
Hey guys, thanks for coming to
Universe.
Commentage. Check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You're my wonder why.
Very good.
But yeah, why was that just hanging out where you could just grab it? And it was long enough that not only could he get it, figure out what it is, go to the book, go, okay, this is how I'm supposed to use it, use the spell, experiment on the apple on the table, experiment on the book. Conservatively, he was alone with it for half an hour learning how to play with it, disrupting the forces of nature. Why is that not in a vault somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, once again, they've trusted Doctor Strange with maybe too much responsibility and not punished him when he's done something wrong.
Yeah, they should have hit him with those little magic whips. Just whoosh, whoosh.
Yeah. Well, I think we've said it all.
Yeah, I'm just going to close it out with one thing. I remember a lot of people complaining online when this came out that the magic wasn't crazy enough. I disagree. The magic in this is pretty insane. The different dimensions and portals and the time travel. It's pretty rad.
It's
but,
also I
think it goes without.
Sorry, it's also the first that we see of the magic in the MCU and stuff. I'm okay with them easiness in. I think Multiverse of Madness is going to be pretty insane. There's also
I think so.
The 2 years here that we've kind of lost in the MCU in the
yeah,
world.
I agree.
So I think
I think it goes without saying, obviously Doctor Strange deserved a reboot. Obviously this put the character on the map, and this is the accepted version, and he's a staple to the MCU. He's a staple to pop culture at this point. Yes, obviously this one needed to happen. So
this franchise is Remake Rewind approved, and then do a stamp sound effect. It's branded okay.
All right, man. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, as always, I'm on Instagram at Dyslexic, DYS Alex IC. I'm on Twitter for the time being, I guess, at Polishi. I'm on TikTok at Polishi. And you can find all sorts of film and TV shirts and stuff that I make at Burn the Scene Boutique on Etsy. And if you use Remake Rewind as a promo code, you can get a little discount.
Ooh! And you guys can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all at MDXpods. We are also on YouTube. You can just search Remake Rewind, Ruin My Childhood, or MDXpods, and we'll be there. Please check out our other great show that I do with my wife, Ruin My Childhood. We just did The Rock, and that was a blast to talk about. We did it because Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent was coming out. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/MDXpods. But that's it. Thanks for listening.
I'm also on Letterboxd at Polishi.
Yeah, you is.
All right, I'll play you guys off.
Wonderwall.
Today is gonna be the day.
I know. I got. I'm gonna send it back to you.
Leave all that in.
Right now. All right. That's enough.
Very good. Very good.